Hey YouTube, and welcome to the Steel and Wood channel. Today we're going to be talking about how to clean a revolver. I've got all my cleaning supplies laid out here, and I'll go through what all I use to clean my revolver and the method that I use as well. So here we just have a basic gun cleaning kit. Comes with a full-length rifle cleaning rod, and I've just taken the end that holds the jag and used it by itself for attaching the bore brush. Now there are different philosophies on, do you use an eyelet jag for patches? Do you use a Parker Hale style jag? What I've found is just taking a patch and wrapping it around this copper bristle bore brush will actually make it stick on the best, and also gets the most coverage for the patch on the inside of the barrel. That's just what I do. Any of these things that I talk about in this video, you're more than welcome to disagree, or you may do it a different way or find a way that works better for you. A lot of it just comes down to trial and error and doing it and see what works the best for you and your firearms. Next thing I have here is a jar of used to be baby food, and I've got it filled up with patches and hops number 9. Now this comes from a video I saw a long time ago. Ryan Kleckner made a National Shooting Sports Foundation video about how to clean your rifle, and one of the things he said that he found that works best is, instead of trying to use the big jar of hops number 9 solvent, or trying to wet each individual patch, you just take one of these baby food jars and put your hops number 9 in there and stuff it full of patches. That way when you're ready to clean, you've got wet patches ready to go, and I think it's a great method. It works well. Nice clever idea, Mr. Kleckner. Okay, for lubrication, I'm using Slip 2000 EWL. It just stands for Extreme Weapons Lubricant. Use any kind of gun lubricant you want. The only major difference is whether you get a grease or an oil. This is an oil. I don't use grease on my revolver, but I do use grease on pretty much all of my other firearms for certain spots, high wear areas. Maybe we'll talk about that when I make a video on cleaning other types of guns, semi-auto pistol or rifle, shotgun, whatever. Also have some Q-tips here. Helps to get into the tight spots in your firearm. I have a couple brushes. One is just a stiff nylon bristle brush that came in this cleaning kit, and the other just a regular cheapo toothbrush. This can help reach into those areas that you can't really get to scrub just with your fingers or whatever. I have some dry patches. This is a bag that I have that Hops makes pre-cut patches for the caliber barrel that you're using. So these are made for .270 to .35 caliber. This is what I use. You can also get them pre-cut just for a particular size, like say a 2-inch wide patch or something, if you know what size you need. But these seem to work pretty good. And then I keep a couple of rags around, old towel, just for wiping the surface, wiping anywhere that's not the actual bore of the firearm, and wipe your hands off too. Last thing I'm going to be using for this is a screwdriver. Now this is not some sort of gunsmith screwdriver or anything else. It's just a quick switch screwdriver here, and I have found that in this I have a flathead bit that is a perfect size for working on this Smith & Wesson revolver. So with that, let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that your firearm is unloaded. Now this one is loaded right now, so I'm going to unload it by pushing the, figure out how to get it in frame here, pushing the cylinder release forward and pulling the cylinder out to the side, and you can just dump those rounds into your hand. Okay, now we see that we have empty chambers in the cylinder, and we're good to start. Next, you notice that on this particular revolver I have wood grips. These came from Hogue. They are a burl walnut wood grip. This solvent right here and any oils can soak into wood grips and either discolor or actually start to deteriorate the wood and damage them. So whenever you're working with a revolver, or any gun with wood grips for that matter, you want to make sure to protect your wood. Either on a revolver you could take the grips off, things of that nature. It's easy to do. One screw here, pop it off, good to go. Now if you were to have grips made out of G10 or something like that, like your VZ grips, then you don't have to really worry about that as much. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these grips. By the way, I didn't mention, but this is a Smith & Wesson 686 revolver with a 4-inch barrel. I'm going to take this screw out and make sure that you have something that you can keep your screws organized in. I'll just put my grip screw right there, but if you have one of those little, you go to Advanced Auto Parts or Harbor Freight, they have the little magnetic bowl for putting bolts or nuts in. Those work great for something like this so that you don't lose it. Slide the grips off, put those to the side. Now we can start cleaning. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cleaning rod, grab a solvent patch, and I'll show you what I was talking about wrapping it around the bristle brush, the bore brush. So you take this and actually just roll it onto there. Give it a little squeeze, and the bristles will actually hold that on, you see. Now what I'm going to do is take this revolver, I'm going to put this wet patch through the barrel, and I'm also going to put it through all 6 of these cylinders, chambers. Okay, and I'm just going to let that solvent sit there for about 5 minutes. Alright, it's been about 5 minutes, so now I'm going to take this bristle brush by itself and actually run through these chambers or yes, these chambers and the bore about 10 times each. Now the downside of using the method that I do with the patches is, if you can see, it's kind of collected some of this patch material, but that's okay. You just pick it out, it's no big deal. So I'm gonna run this through. Alright, you'll do the same thing for each chamber in the cylinder. I won't bore you with that. We'll come back once I've scrubbed each chamber. Okay, so I've finished with the scrubbing of the chambers and the bore. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a dry patch, a couple actually, and run down the barrel first. We'll clean the barrel first, and then we will clean the chambers. So I'll push this down and back out, and you see we're getting all this black gunpowder residue out of there. Now I'm going to flip this over, attach it back on, and do the same thing again. And I will probably do this about 3 times or so in the barrel. Really, when this comes out, you want it to be white. You don't want any residue left. Now if you're somebody that shoots unjacketed projectiles through your revolver, like lead bullet, you may have to use a lead remover, something like that, heavier cleaning regimen. But generally I'll shoot a full metal jacket through this revolver, so I don't really have to worry about that. I do remember that a tip that Hickok 45 gave at one point was that, you know, after you've shot a few cylinders worth of lead bullets, shoot a cylinder with jacketed bullets, and he's found that that really cleared out a lot of his leading issues, having the lead build up inside the barrel. So take this next patch, go through the bore here, and you see that it's getting better. It's not as dark. Now as you're putting these dry patches through, you're also soaking up that solvent as well. So what we'll do is put another wet patch through once these start to come out pretty dry. You see how it's getting cleaner, pretty clean already. There's going to be a few more patches and they'll be white, but you put another wet patch through to renew that solvent in there and keep breaking down any gunpowder residue you have in there. So I'll put this wet patch through. And once again, we'll take our dry patch and start cleaning out that residue. See, this one is almost clean. Now this is only, I think I put about maybe 50 rounds through it, so it shouldn't be too filthy. but now you can see it's getting cleaner and cleaner. And you'll repeat this process in each cylinder, same exact thing. And what you should see in the end, if you have a bore that is good, you know, hasn't been damaged or anything, and you have cylinders that haven't been damaged, what you should see when they're clean and those patches come out white is that those the bore and the chambers should look like a mirror on the inside pretty much. So I'm going to finish that and then we'll move on. Alright, now with that done and all of our chambers and the bore clean, last thing I'm going to do is take one patch, actually put some oil on it. Now a lot of people will probably disagree with this, but this is what I do to make sure that the bore never rusts. And then I'll take this oil and put it on this patch and run it down the barrel once and then down each chamber. And then before you go out to shoot, you can run a dry patch through if you like, but like I said, this is just what I do. I just have that light layer of oil in the bore and in each chamber to make sure there's no rust. And you know, when I go shoot, it works fine. There's no adverse effect that I can tell. So like I said, I'm going to take this Slip 2000 and just put that light coat of oil in the chambers and the barrel. Alright, and with that we are done with the chambers and the bore of the Revolver. I'm just going to wipe off any excess solvent or anything that got on the outside of the firearm in your cutout here in the frame, all this. Now, places that also I'll wipe up, right here where the crane rotates, you have a pretty tight fit here, so I put a little drop of oil in there and I'll clean the old oil out first, just with a rag or Q-tip, because that oil, if you've got powder fouling in it, you know, it may just look like the oil is a little dark, but what it is tiny particles that are going to rub in this mechanism every time you move it, and it probably doesn't make that, you know, it probably wouldn't really hurt anything, but I just like to get that old oil out. And I'll just take your oil here, put a drop right where that crane rotates, and move it back and forth a few times to work that oil in. Okay. Now this is just a basic cleaning video. We're not gonna go inside the workings of the side plate. You can. Generally what I'll do is you take your screws out for your side plate, turn the gun over, and I'll use the back of this plastic screwdriver. You actually hit on the side here with something that is not going to damage the finish. You can even maybe put a little rag or something here if you want, and it should loosen that side plate up and it'll pop out. And then once you get into the inner workings here, any point, some people may say this is over oiling, but the industry that I work in is has to do with machinery, and my thought process has always been, you know, even as I was taught growing up, any metal on metal contact gets a little bit of lubrication. So anything in here that is a moving part where it will rub on a pin or whatever, just put one little drop there of some kind of oil and you should be good to go. And if you open this up and it's got old oil that's all gunked up in there or something. You know, something as simple as using a little bit of brake cleaner, non-chlorinated brake cleaner, something like that on a rag, or just to be able to wipe it out, and it'll kind of break that old oil up. So at this point, we've done all we need to do as far as lubrication and cleaning. Like I said, your hammer's still good, the trigger's good, nothing feels gummy or anything, so we don't need to lubricate any of that stuff. And now we can put our grips back on. So just turn this over. Make sure we don't have any excess lubricant or solvent around where the grips are going to be put on. And this can be a little fiddly sometimes. Okay, not too bad that time actually. So get your grips pushed all the way up. And we'll grab our screw. And we'll, normally if you're starting a screw you want to do it by hand, but because the head is so low here you really can't. But just be gentle with it. If you have to force it, you're cross-threading it. Stop and figure out what's the issue. This little screw here doesn't need much tension. You get it where it's starting to get snug, just snug it up, and that's it. So if you have watched this far, thank you, I appreciate it. And if you have any questions or anything, feel free to leave a comment, or even if you have a different method that you think works better, feel free. Let's bring some ideas and help everyone do this easier or better if you have a better way. So thank you again, and I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks. Have a good one.